Captain Colin Hayes pushed through the crowded market district of Station Kepler 7, his boots echoing against the metal walkway. The air buzzed with 100 different voices, all speaking different languages, all trying to sell something or buy something cheap. Alien merchants hawked their wares from colorful stalls. The smell of exotic spices mixed with engine oil and recycled air. Colin had been coming to this station for 5 years now. He knew every shortcut, every honest trader, and every scam to avoid. Today he had just finished a good deal on grain shipments heading to the outer colonies. His pockets were heavier than they had been in months. He was thinking about a hot meal and maybe some rest before his next job. That was when he felt the small tug on his jacket sleeve. Colin looked down and saw a child. She was Velrothi, one of the fox-like species from the outer rim colonies. Her fur was a dusty brown color, matted and dirty. Her large amber eyes stared up at him with a mixture of hope and fear. She could not have been more than 8 years old by his guess. Her clothes hung loose on her thin frame, patched in so many places that it was hard to tell what the original fabric had been. In her small arms she clutched a bundle of toys. Wooden carvings, cloth dolls, some small figures made from what looked like scrap metal twisted into shapes. "Please, human," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Please buy my toys." Colin stopped walking. Around them, the crowd continued to flow like a river around rocks. Nobody else seemed to notice the small girl. A large Grenthian merchant pushed past, nearly knocking her over. She stumbled but kept her grip on her precious toys. "Please, sir," she said again, and this time Colin heard her voice crack. "I need money. My mother is very sick." Colin crouched down so he was at her eye level. Up close he could see how exhausted she looked. Dark circles under her eyes. Her hands trembled as she held out a wooden carving of a bird. "What is your name?" Colin asked, keeping his voice gentle. "Mira," she replied. She thrust the bird carving toward him. "Please, this is good work." "Very good. My father taught me how to make them before he went away." Colin took the carving and turned it over in his hands. His eyebrows raised in surprise. The detail was incredible. Every feather was carved with precision. The wood had been sanded smooth. The bird's eyes had been painted with tiny dots that made it look almost alive. The balance was perfect. This was not some crude toy made by desperate hands. This was real craftsmanship. "Your father was a good teacher," Colin said. "This is beautiful work, Mira. How long have you been out here trying to sell these?" Mira's fox-like ears drooped against her head. "4 days now, sir. I sold only 2 small dolls. I made 12 credits total." Her voice became even quieter. "The medicine my mother needs costs 5,000 credits." Colin felt something twist in his chest. He had traveled to 100 different stations and planets. He had seen poverty and suffering in many forms. But there was always something about seeing a child in such desperate circumstances that hit him harder than anything else. It reminded him too much of his own childhood in Earth's slums, when every day was a struggle just to eat. "Tell me about your mother," Colin said. "What is making her sick?" "Tarvik fever," Mira said, and Colin saw her eyes begin to fill with tears. "The medical clinic on level 3 said they can cure it. They have the medicine. But they want all the money first. Before they will help. We do not have enough credits. Nobody will give us credit. My father." She stopped, swallowing hard. "My father went on a cargo run 6 months ago. To earn money for us. His ship never came back. They said it was lost in a navigation error near the asteroid belt." Colin stood up slowly. He looked around the market with different eyes now. A Hentali merchant at the next stall was glaring at Mira, clearly annoyed that she was standing near his display. A group of well-dressed Centauri diplomats walked past, their expensive robes swishing. They did not even glance down at the small girl. A station security officer stood at the corner, arms crossed, staring at nothing. He had probably seen Mira out here for days and done nothing. "Where is your mother right now?" Colin asked. "Our room, sir. Level 7 in the lower residential section." Mira's voice shook. "She cannot get up from her bed anymore. Our neighbor, Mrs. Salna, she checks on her when she can. She brings water. But mother is getting worse every day. She has fever and she coughs blood sometimes now." Colin knew about Tarvik fever. It was a nasty disease but completely curable if treated early. The problem was that the treatment was expensive, and most clinics on stations like this demanded payment up front. They had been burned too many times by people who could not pay. So they let people die rather than take a risk. It was brutal, but it was the reality of life on the frontier stations. He made his decision. His cargo hold was 3/4 full of legitimate goods. His bank account had 30,000 credits in it after his latest deals. His next delivery was not scheduled for 5 days. He had time. He had resources. And he had grown up knowing what it felt like when nobody would help you because you did not have money. How much do you want for all of these? Colin asked, gesturing to her entire collection of toys. Mira blinked. She stared at him like she had not understood the question. All of them? Every single one you have got there. Her hands started to shake harder. She looked down at her toys, trying to count them, trying to do math in her head. I think maybe 300 credits would be fair? They are all good quality, my father taught me. I will give you 500 credits for everything, Colin interrupted. Mira's eyes went wide. Her mouth opened but no sound came out. But there is a condition, Colin continued. Before I buy them, I want to see your mother. I want to see exactly what condition she is in. I want to understand what we are dealing with here. Mira whispered. Colin smiled just a little. Yeah, kid. Now come on. Take me to your mother. And along the way, you can tell me more about these toys and what else you and your neighbors can make. Mira stood frozen for a moment, as if she could not believe what was happening. Then she nodded quickly, her ears perking up slightly for the first time. She carefully gathered her toys back into her arms and started walking quickly through the crowd. Colin followed her, his hand resting on the credit chip in his pocket. He did not know exactly what he was getting himself into. But he knew one thing for certain. He was not going to let this child's mother die because some clinic administrator cared more about credits than lives. They moved through the market and toward the lifts that would take them down to level 7. Mira kept glancing back at him as if afraid he might disappear. But Colin stayed right behind her, steady and solid. Whatever came next, he would figure it out. That was what humans did. The lift descended slowly through the levels of Station Kepler 7, its old mechanism groaning with each floor. Mira stood pressed against the corner, clutching her toys, stealing nervous glances at Colin. He could tell she was still afraid he might change his mind, might disappear like so many promised hopes probably had before. The doors opened on level 7 with a rusty screech. The difference from the upper levels was immediate and stark. The lighting here was dimmer, with several panels flickering or dead entirely. The air smelled stale and recycled too many times. The walls showed water stains and poorly patched holes. This was where the station put people it did not care about. The refugees. The workers who could not afford better. The forgotten. Mira led Colin down a narrow corridor. The floor was uneven, patched with different materials in different places. They passed several doors, most of them dented or scratched. Behind some, Colin could hear voices, children crying, the sounds of too many people living in spaces too small. Here, Mira said, stopping at a door that looked no different from the others except for a small cloth hanging beside it, woven in traditional Velrothi patterns. She pressed her small hand against the lock panel. It beeped and the door slid open halfway before getting stuck. Mira had to push it the rest of the way. The room inside was tiny. Maybe 3 meters by 4 meters. A single sleeping mat lay on the floor against one wall. A small heating unit sat in the corner, currently off to save power. A few belongings were stacked neatly in a crate. On the mat lay a Velrothi woman, and Colin knew immediately this was Mira's mother. Nessa was thin, far too thin. Her fur had lost its shine and lay flat against her body. Her breathing was shallow and ragged. Even from the doorway, Colin could hear the wet rattle in her lungs. Her eyes were closed and she did not stir when they entered. "Mother," Mira whispered, kneeling beside the mat. "Mother, I brought someone. A human. He wants to help." Nessa's eyes opened slowly. They were glassy with fever. She tried to focus on Colin, then tried to sit up. She managed to lift her head perhaps 10 centimeters before falling back, too weak to continue. "No," she whispered, her voice hoarse. "Mira, no strangers. We talked about this. Please, Mother, he is different. He bought all my toys. He wants to help." Colin stepped forward and knelt on the other side of the mat. He pulled a small device from his jacket pocket. It was a personal medical scanner, something every long-distance trader kept for emergencies in deep space. "Ma'am, my name is Colin Hayes. I am a cargo ship captain. With your permission, I would like to scan you. Just to confirm what we are dealing with." Nessa looked at him with suspicion, but she was too weak to resist. She gave a tiny nod. Colin activated the scanner and passed it slowly over her body. The small screen lit up with readings. His jaw tightened as he read the results. Tarvic fever, advanced stage. The disease had spread through her respiratory system and was beginning to affect her liver. She had maybe a week left, possibly less. But the scanner also confirmed what he had hoped. With proper treatment, the cure rate was over 90%. This was completely fixable. She did not need to die. How much have you eaten today? Colin asked gently. I gave my portion to Mira this morning, Nessa whispered. Not hungry anyway. Colin looked around the small room again. No food storage. No supplies. These two had nothing. A noise at the door made him turn. 3 more Velrothi had appeared. 2 older males and 1 elderly female. They crowded in the doorway, their faces showing mixtures of concern and hostility. Who is this? One of the males demanded. Mira, who is this human? He wants to help Mother, Mira said quickly. Humans do not help, the elderly female said sharply. Not without wanting something. Not people like us. Colin stood up slowly, keeping his movements calm and non-threatening. My name is Colin Hayes. You are right to be suspicious. But I am not here to take advantage. I am here because your neighbor's daughter deserves a chance and so does her mother. The medicine costs 5,000 credits, the other male said. You have that kind of money to just give away to strangers? I have it, Colin said. But you are right, I am not just giving it away. I have a proposition. A business deal. The Velrothi exchanged confused glances. Nessa tried to shake her head. No charity, she whispered. We do not take charity. Good, Colin said. Because I am not offering charity. I am offering a partnership. He pulled out one of the wooden carvings Mira had made, the bird he had examined in the market. This is exceptional work. Museum quality. I have traded across 40 systems and I know craftsmanship when I see it. Your daughter told me her father taught her. Which means others in this community probably have similar skills. The elderly female narrowed her eyes. So what? The rich tourists on the upper levels do not buy from people like us. They do not even look at us. The rich tourists on this station are not my customers, Colin said. My customers are spread across the galaxy. Wealthy collectors on the core worlds. Diplomats looking for unique gifts. Art dealers who pay premium prices for authentic cultural work. He looked at each of them. I am proposing we form a cooperative. You make the items using your traditional skills and techniques. I handle the sales, marketing, and distribution through my existing trade networks. We split the profits fairly. There was a long silence. The Velrothi stared at him like he had just proposed something impossible. You would do this? One of the males finally asked. Pay for Nessa's treatment and trust us to make it worth your while later? I would front the initial investment, yes, Colin said. I pay for the medicine today. I buy supplies. Tools, materials, whatever you need. You produce the goods. I take a 30% commission on sales to cover my costs and time. The rest goes to the cooperative members. As we grow, we bring in others from your community who want to participate. This is crazy, the elderly female said, but her voice had less edge now. Why would you risk so much for people you do not even know? Colin looked down at Mira, who was watching him with those huge amber eyes filled with desperate hope. Then he looked at Nessa, dying on a mat because she could not afford medicine that cost less than what some people spent on a single meal. Because I grew up in Earth's slums, Colin said quietly. I know what it is like when nobody will give you a chance. When doors stay closed no matter how hard you knock. Someone gave me a break once. Gave me work on a cargo ship when everyone else said I was too young, too inexperienced, too risky. That break changed my life. Maybe I can be that break for someone else. He pulled out his credit chip and held it up. I am going to that clinic on level 3 right now. I am paying for a full treatment course for Nessa. While she recovers, I want you all to think about my offer. If you decide yes, we start immediately. If you decide no, the medicine is still paid for. No strings attached to that part. Mira deserves her mother. That is not negotiable. Tears rolled down Mira's face. Nessa was crying too, though she tried to hide it. The other Velrothi looked at each other, having silent conversations with their expressions. Finally, the elderly female stepped forward. My name is Mrs. Salna. I can weave. Traditional patterns, clothing, tapestries. If you are serious about this, truly serious, then we will try. I am serious, Colin said. He walked to the door, then paused and looked back. One more thing. Have any of you eaten today? The silence that followed was his answer. Colin returned to level 7 the next morning with 3 large containers floating behind him on a graph sled. Word had spread through the refugee community overnight. When he arrived at the common area, he found not just Mira and her neighbors, but nearly 20 Velrothi waiting for him. Their faces showed cautious hope mixed with disbelief. I brought supplies, Colin announced, gesturing to the containers. Carving tools, fabrics, dyes, sewing equipment and materials. Also food. Real food, not the recycled protein paste from the station dispensers. The crowd murmured. An older male stepped forward, his gray fur marking him as an elder. The human really came back, he said, more to the others than to Colin. I did not believe it. I keep my promises, Colin said simply. He opened the first container. Inside were packages of dried fruits, grain bars, preserved meats, and fresh vegetables from the hydroponics gardens on the upper levels. Everyone takes what they need. No limits today. You cannot work on empty stomachs. For a moment, nobody moved. Then Mira darted forward and grabbed a package of grain bars. That broke the spell. The Velrothi came forward, still cautious, still not quite believing this was real. Colin watched as they took food, as some of them unwrapped items right there and ate with trembling hands. He realized some of them had not had a proper meal in days, maybe weeks. Mrs. Salna approached him, her old eyes studying his face. Why do you really do this, human? The truth. Colin met her gaze steadily. Because systems like this one grind up people who cannot fight back. Because I got lucky once and someone helped me when they did not have to. Because it is the right thing to do. He paused. And because I think we can all make money together. I'm not a saint, Mrs. Salna. I am a businessman. But I believe good business can also be good for people. She nodded slowly. Then we will show you what we can do. Over the following days, Colin established a routine. Every morning he would arrive on level 7 with supplies or food. Nessa was responding well to the treatment. The fever had broken after the second day. Her breathing improved. Color returned to her fur. The medical staff at the clinic seemed shocked that someone had actually paid the full amount up front. They treated her with more respect once they realized she was not just another refugee trying to beg for free care. While Nessa recovered in their small room, the cooperative began to take shape. Colin rented a larger storage unit on level 6, one with proper lighting and ventilation. He brought in work tables and chairs. He set up a small office space in the corner with a basic computer terminal connected to the galactic trade networks. Mira was there every day, watching everything he did with hungry curiosity. Colin started teaching her as he worked. See this terminal? He said, showing her the screen. This connects to trade hubs across 40 different systems. Each system has different tastes, different customers, different price points. The trick is matching the right product to the right market. How do you know which is right? Mira asked, leaning close to see the display. Research and experience, Colin said. For example, the Zentari value geometric precision and symmetry in their art. They will pay premium prices for pieces that show mathematical perfection. The Korvax prefer organic shapes and natural themes. They want to see the grain of the wood, the texture of the fabric. You show them the same thing in different ways. Mira's eyes lit up with understanding. So the same carving could be worth different amounts depending on who buys it? Exactly. That is why having access to multiple markets matters. We find the buyers who will appreciate and pay properly for the work. The other Velrothi brought their skills to the cooperative. An old male named Torin was a master carver who had worked with wood for 60 years. His hands were gnarled but still steady. He could transform a chunk of scrap wood into a detailed sculpture in less than a day. Mrs. Salna and 3 other females worked on textiles, weaving traditional patterns that told stories of their lost colony world. A younger male named Petrick had a talent for metalwork, creating delicate wire sculptures and jewelry from recycled station materials. Colin photographed everything they made. He wrote descriptions emphasizing the cultural heritage and craftsmanship. He posted listings on trade forums and sent direct messages to contacts he had built over years of trading. He priced items fairly but not cheaply. These were not tourist trinkets. These were genuine cultural artifacts made by skilled artisans. The first sale came 3 days later. A Zentari diplomat on Core World 7 purchased an entire set of geometric wooden puzzles Torin had carved. The price was 800 credits. When Colin showed the confirmation to the cooperative members, they stared at the screen in silence. 800 credits, Torin whispered. For 3 days of work. Your skill is worth proper compensation, Colin said. After my 30% commission, the cooperative earns 560 credits. That goes into the group fund. We agreed you draw what you need for food and supplies, and the rest we reinvest in materials and tools. More sales followed. A Korvax art collector bought 2 of Mrs. Salna's tapestries for a combined 1,200 credits. A human museum curator on Earth purchased 3 of Petrick's wire sculptures for 600 credits. A wealthy Hentali merchant bought carved game pieces as gifts for his family for 900 credits. Within 2 weeks, the cooperative had earned over 8,000 credits. After Colin's commission and expenses, They had nearly 5,000 credits in their group fund. It was more money than most of them had seen in years. The change in the community was visible. People stood straighter. They smiled more. The children played with more energy, their bellies full. The workspace buzzed with activity and conversation. Velrathi, who had been withdrawn and hopeless, now talked excitedly about their projects and shared techniques with each other. Nessa was well enough to leave her room by the third week. She came to the workshop leaning on Mira's shoulder, still weak but recovering. When she saw what had been built, what her community had become, she sat down and cried. "You did this," she said to Colin. "You saved my life and gave us all a future." "No," Colin said gently. "I just opened a door. You're all walking through it yourselves. The work is yours. The skill is yours. I am just the middleman." Mira had blossomed in these weeks. She still made her carvings, but now she also helped Colin with the computer terminal. She learned to write product descriptions. She learned to calculate profit margins. She learned the names of different species and what they valued. She asked 1,000 questions and remembered every answer. One evening, as they were closing up the workshop, Mira looked up at Colin with serious eyes. "When I grow up, I want to do what you do. I want to travel to different worlds and help people trade." Colin smiled. "Then I will teach you everything I know. But first, you need to keep learning. Education, Mira. Reading, mathematics, galactic languages. The more you know, the better trader you will become." "I will study hard," Mira promised. "I will make you proud." "You already do," Colin said. News of the cooperative's success spread through Level 7. Other refugees approached Colin, asking if they could join. He evaluated their skills carefully, bringing in those who could contribute. A Grenthian male who did leatherwork. A human female who made pottery. 2 Korvac siblings who created intricate paper art from recycled materials. The cooperative grew to 30 members. Colin rented a second storage unit. He hired a part-time assistant to help with shipping and inventory. The sales continued to climb. They were averaging 15,000 credits in revenue per week now. But success also brought attention. And not all attention was good. 3 months had passed since Colin first met Mira in the market. The cooperative now occupied an entire floor of storage units on Level 6. 52 members worked there daily, representing 6 different species. The revenue had grown to nearly 30,000 credits per week. The Velrathi section of Level 7 had been transformed. Families could afford proper food. Children attended the station's free education programs. People had hope again. Colin sat in his small office reviewing sales reports when Mira burst through the door, her face flushed with excitement. "Colin, we got another big order. A museum on Centauri Prime wants 20 pieces for their cultural exhibit. They are offering 12,000 credits." Colin smiled. "Excellent work. Which pieces did they select?" Mira pulled up the list on her datapad. Over the past months, she had become his unofficial assistant. She was quick with numbers and had a natural talent for understanding what customers wanted. She was only 8 years old, but she worked with the focus of someone much older. They were reviewing the order details when the office door slid open again. This time without knocking. 2 figures entered without invitation. Colin recognized them immediately and his expression hardened. The first was Administrator Volk, a Grenthian bureaucrat who oversaw station operations for levels 5 through 9. He was thick-bodied with gray-scaled skin and small, calculating eyes. The second was Quinton Reeves, a human merchant who ran several shops on the upper levels. He was thin, well-dressed, and wore a smile that never reached his eyes. "Captain Hayes," Volk said, his voice oily and smooth. "We need to have a conversation about your little operation here." "Administrator," Colin replied coolly. "I was not aware we had an appointment." "No appointment necessary for official station business," Volk said, settling his bulk into one of the chairs without being invited. Quinton remained standing, looking around the office with obvious disdain. Mira moved closer to Colin's desk, her ears flattening nervously against her head. "What can I do for you?" Colin asked. Volk pulled out a datapad and made a show of reviewing it. "It has come to my attention that your cooperative has been operating without proper licensing. There are fees that have not been paid. Regulations that have not been followed. This is very serious." Colin's jaw tightened. "I filed all the proper paperwork 3 months ago. I have licenses for commercial trade, cultural artifact sales, and multi-species employment. Every fee was paid in full." "Ah, but those were the old regulations," Volk said smoothly. "New rules went into effect last month. There is now a cultural export tax, a refugee employment surcharge, enhanced safety inspection fees. It adds up to quite a sum. How much? Colin asked, though he already knew this was extortion. 15,000 credits due immediately, Volk said. Plus ongoing monthly fees of 5,000. Quinton spoke for the first time. Really, Hayes, you should have consulted with established merchants before starting this venture. We could have advised you on proper procedures. Colin looked at Quinton carefully. And what is your interest in this, Reeves? Quinton's smile widened. I have been watching your operation with great interest. Quite impressive for someone with no experience in cultural goods. I would like to make you an offer. I will buy a controlling stake in the cooperative. 60% ownership for 20,000 credits. That should more than cover your sudden tax burden. The cooperative is not for sale, Colin said flatly. Do not be foolish, Quinton said, his smile fading. You are out of your depth here. You are a cargo hauler playing at being a merchant. This station has rules, systems. You cannot just waltz in and disrupt the established order. The established order seems designed to keep refugees poor and desperate, Colin said. Funny how these new regulations appeared exactly when we started succeeding. Volk's eyes narrowed. Careful, Captain. Your accusations could be considered defamatory. That carries its own penalties. Here is the situation, Quinton said, leaning forward. You sign over majority control to me, or Administrator Volk will be forced to shut down your operation for regulatory violations. Additionally, the refugee work permits for all your Velrothi employees will be revoked. They will be deported from the station within 1 week. Mira gasped. Colin put a hand on her shoulder, a silent signal to stay quiet. You would deport 50 people because I would not pay a bribe? Colin asked. I would enforce station regulations, Volk said coldly. What you call it is irrelevant. You have 48 hours to comply. Either pay the fees and ongoing charges, or transfer controlling interest to Merchant Reeves. Those are your options. They stood to leave. Quinton paused at the door. Nothing personal, Hayes. This is just business. You stumbled into a profitable niche without understanding the landscape. Someone has to maintain order. The door slid shut behind them. For a long moment, Colin sat in silence. Mira was trembling beside him. Colin, she whispered. They cannot do this. They cannot send everyone away. My mother, Mrs. Salna, all the families. Where would we go? They are not going to, Colin said quietly. But you heard them. 48 hours. How can we fight them? They have all the power on this station. Colin turned to his computer terminal and began typing. Mira, I need you to do something for me. Go find your mother, Mrs. Salna, Torin, and Petrick. Ask them to come here quietly. Do not tell anyone else what happened yet. Can you do that? Mira nodded and ran from the office. Colin spent the next hour making calls. First, he contacted station security officer named Carter Webb, a human he had shared drinks with several times. Webb was honest, one of the few, and he had mentioned before that he was frustrated with corruption in the administration. Webb, I need your help with something. Can you pull records of business closures and deportations over the past 2 years? I am looking for a pattern. Next, he called a journalist named Sarah Kim who worked for an independent news service that covered the outer stations. They had met at a trade conference a year ago. Sarah, remember how you said you were looking for a story about corruption on frontier stations? I think I have something for you. Third, he reached out to every merchant contact he had built over the years. Honest traders who had dealt with him fairly. People who owed him favors. People who believed in doing business the right way. By the time Nessa, Mrs. Salna, Torin, and Petrick arrived at his office, Colin had made 15 calls. When Mira brought them in, they looked worried. Mira told us there is trouble, Nessa said. What happened? Colin explained the situation clearly and calmly. When he finished, Torin slammed his fist on the desk. This is what always happens. The powerful take from the weak. There is no justice for people like us. Maybe, Colin said. But I am not weak. And neither are you. Not anymore. He turned his computer screen to show them what he had been working on. Volk has done this before. I had Webb pull the records. Over the past 2 years, 17 small businesses have been shut down with similar regulatory violations appearing suddenly. In each case, either Quinton or one of his associates ended up acquiring the business assets for pennies. In 14 of those cases, refugee workers were deported. Mrs. Salna studied the screen. You have proof of a pattern. But who will listen? Who cares about refugees and small traders? More people than you think, Colin said. Sarah Kim is flying in tomorrow to interview us. Webb is willing to testify about what he has seen. I have 12 merchant contacts who have agreed to file formal complaints about Volk's practices. And I have one more card to play. What card? Mira asked. Colin smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Publicity. Quinton and Volk are counting on us being quiet and compliant. They think we will just roll over. They are wrong. 48 hours later, Administrator Volk and Quinton Reeves walked toward the cooperative workspace expecting to find Colin Hayes broken and ready to surrender. Instead, they found the main floor packed with people and bright lights. Volk stopped in the doorway, confusion crossing his scaled features. What is this? The workspace had been transformed. Tables were pushed to the sides. In the center, Colin stood surrounded by at least 30 people. There were merchants Volk recognized from the upper levels. There was Carter Webb in his security uniform, looking official and stern. There was a human woman with recording equipment, her camera drone hovering above the crowd. And filling the rest of the space were the cooperative members, all 52 of them, standing together in quiet solidarity. This is a press conference, Colin said calmly. Sarah Kim from Frontier Truth News is broadcasting live across the station network. We thought the community should know what has been happening here. Quinton's face flushed red. You cannot do this. This is a private business matter. Nothing private about corruption, Sarah Kim said, stepping forward with a microphone. Administrator Volk, Merchant Reeves, would you care to comment on the pattern of businesses being shut down under suspicious circumstances, only to have their assets acquired by associates of Merchant Reeves? Volk's small eyes darted around the room. He clearly had not expected this. I have no comment. This is slander. I will have you. I have the records right here, Carter Webb interrupted, holding up a data pad. 17 businesses in 2 years. All small operations. All hit with sudden regulatory violations. All involving refugee workers who were subsequently deported. The pattern is clear and documented. A murmur went through the crowd. Several of the merchants nodded. One of them, an older Zentari named Kelvix, stepped forward. I was wondering when someone would finally challenge this, Kelvix said. 3 years ago, Volk hit my shipping business with phantom violations. I paid 30,000 credits in fees to make it go away. I kept quiet because I was afraid. But I kept my records. As did I, said another merchant, a Korvax female. Volk demanded tribute or threatened to revoke my trade license. And I, said a third. 20,000 credits over bogus safety violations. Sarah Kim's camera captured everything. Her drone moved through the crowd, recording faces, recording testimony. This was going out live to every screen on the station. Volk's confidence crumbled. This is orchestrated. Hayes put you up to this. You are all lying. The records do not lie, Webb said coldly. I have been documenting your activities for months, waiting for someone brave enough to make a formal complaint. Captain Hayes and these merchants have filed official grievances with the Station Governing Council. As of 1 hour ago, your administrative authority is suspended pending investigation. The color drained from Volk's face. You cannot suspend me. I am the administrator. You were the administrator, said a new voice from the doorway. Everyone turned. 3 figures entered, all wearing the formal robes of the Station Governing Council. The one who had spoken was Councillor Zhang, the head of station operations. Her expression was carved from ice. Administrator Volk, Merchant Reeves, you are both ordered to appear before the full council in 2 hours. Security will escort you. She gestured and 2 more security officers appeared behind Volk and Quinton. The evidence presented today is substantial. You will have opportunity to defend yourselves, but until the investigation is complete, all your administrative powers are revoked. Quinton started to protest, but Councillor Zhang cut him off with a sharp gesture. Merchant Reeves, we have also frozen your business accounts pending review of how you acquired 17 separate business properties over the past 2 years. If you have legitimate documentation, you will be fine. If not, she left the threat hanging. The security officers moved forward. Volk and Quinton had no choice but to leave, flanked by guards. The crowd watched them go in silence. Then slowly applause began. It started with Mira clapping her small hands together. Then Nessa joined. Then the other cooperative members. Then the merchants who had stood up. Soon the entire room was clapping, some people cheering. Councillor Zhang waited for the noise to die down. She looked at Colin with an expression that was hard to read. Captain Hayes, your methods were dramatic but effective. The council will conduct a full review of station business regulations. Any fees or requirements that cannot be properly justified will be eliminated. She paused. The cooperative is hereby granted full legal status. All refugee work permits are validated for a minimum of 5 years. No one will be deported. Relief washed through the room like a wave. Colin saw Nessa put her arm around Mira, both of them crying. Mrs. Salna covered her face with her hands. Torin laughed, a sound of pure joy and disbelief. Councillor Jean continued. The council also recognizes that this cooperative has brought positive economic activity to the station. You have our support to continue and expand. We will assign a liaison to help you navigate proper channels without harassment. Thank you, Councillor, Colin said. After the council members left, Sarah Kim approached Colin with her camera still recording. Captain Hayes, you took quite a risk confronting powerful people like Volk and Reeves. What made you decide to fight rather than comply? Colin looked around at the cooperative members, at their faces filled with hope and relief. His eyes settled on Mira. Humans have a reputation in the galaxy for being warriors, for being tough and stubborn. But that is not our real strength. Our real strength is that we build communities. We create networks. We stand together when it matters. He smiled slightly. Volk and Quinton made a mistake. They thought they were dealing with one cargo captain trying to run a small business. They did not realize they were threatening an entire community that had learned to believe in itself again. Sarah nodded, clearly pleased with the answer. And what happens now? Now we get back to work, Colin said simply. The broadcast ended. The merchants congratulated Colin and slowly dispersed. The cooperative members began cleaning up, moving tables back, returning the space to normal. There was a lightness in the air now, laughter and conversation. Mira approached Colin, pulling something from her pocket. It was the wooden bird, the first carving he had bought from her in the market months ago. He had given it back to her after purchasing all her toys that first day. I want you to keep this, Mira said, to remember where we started. Colin took the small carving, turning it over in his hands just as he had that first day. I will never forget, Mira. The investigation took 3 weeks. Volk was stripped of his position and banned from station administration permanently. He was also ordered to pay restitution to the businesses he had extorted. Quinton lost his merchant license and had to sell his shops to cover fines and legal fees. Several of his business associates also faced charges. The cooperative continued to grow. By the end of the first year, they had over 100 members and were generating 100,000 credits in monthly revenue. They opened a training program teaching traditional crafts to young refugees. They established a scholarship fund. They became a model that other stations began to copy. Colin continued to run his cargo business, but he spent more time on the station now, helping manage the cooperative and teaching Mira everything he knew about galactic trade. 5 years passed. Mira was 13 now, tall for her age, confident and sharp. She stood on the bridge of Colin's ship, the Wanderer's Hope, as it made the jump to hyperspace. The wooden bird sat on the console in front of her, secured in a small display case. Colin sat in the captain's chair, watching her study the navigation displays with focused attention. The route to Andromeda Station takes us through 2 jump points, Mira said, reading the data. Estimated travel time is 43 hours. We are carrying 12 containers of cooperative goods plus the standard cargo. The buyers are expecting us in 3 days. Good, Colin said. What is our profit margin on this run? Mira calculated quickly in her head. After fuel, docking fees and your 30% commission, the cooperative will clear about 18,000 credits. Excellent. And what did you learn from the negotiation with the Andromeda buyers? Mira smiled. That Korvax traders always ask for a discount, but they respect you more if you hold firm on quality items. And that building a reputation takes time but pays off in repeat business. Colin nodded, pride evident in his expression. You have learned well. Better than I expected. Mira looked at the wooden bird in its case, then at Colin. You taught me that business is not just about money. It is about people. About giving chances to those who deserve them. About building something that lasts. Your mother must be proud, Colin said. She is. So is everyone at the cooperative. They call you the human who bought us hope. Colin shook his head. I just opened a door, Mira. You and your community walked through it. You did the work. You built the success. But you showed us we could, Mira said softly. That is what humans do, right? You build bridges where others see walls. Colin looked out at the stars streaking past as they traveled through hyperspace. He thought about that day in the market, about a desperate little girl trying to sell toys to save her mother. He thought about the community that had risen from poverty and despair to become thriving and successful. Maybe that is what we do, he said. Maybe that is enough. Mira turned back to the navigation console, already preparing for the next phase of their journey. The wooden bird sat between them, a reminder carved in simple wood of where they had started and how far they had come. One human's compassion. One child's desperate plea. One community's determination. Together they had proven that the galaxy's strength was not just in its warriors or its technology, but in the connections built between people who refused to give up on each other. The ships sailed on through the stars, carrying goods and dreams toward the next port, the next opportunity, the next chance to show what was possible when someone simply decided to care.